realize that I've not done a part 2, and this is definitely a multi-part series about how I was nearly marooned in Europe with my parents at the age of like 18. Whatever. So, early teens, right? Or, I'm sorry, late teens. 18, 19, whatever. Whew. That was a crazy trip. And ironically, all of the countries that we visited, all the countries that we visited, are the same as my donors' ethnicities. They all align, except for Italy. We did not go to Italy, but I was told that that was an option. We were supposed to go to Italy, but travel time wasn't going to work out, so we weren't going to Italy, and I don't know why I was told that. And now I look at that and say, could that have been, this is a hypothetical question, okay? Could that have been their excuse to not tell me that I'm donor conceived? So instead of telling me, they just took me to see these countries in Europe for a family vacation, very expensive one, instead of telling me the truth. I'm gonna have to say, yeah, it seems that way. So, but we'll never know the truth, will we? But that trip was very momentous. I really felt like certain individuals in my family wanted me to be stranded in Europe on purpose. So I felt very anxious and unsafe with what transpired when my passport just disappeared and was left at the front desk at the Zurich hotel. Yikes. That right there, big red flags for me back. And even back then, I was like very alarmed that happened. My raising dad, Peter, did the right thing in telling the other family members that no, he would arrange flights for him and I to travel back to the US as soon as we received by mail my passport. Thank goodness I didn't have a credit card to my name, so I had no form of money. I didn't even have any cash. No US currency. I didn't bring anything with me. I would have been stranded. I think I opened up my first debit card or something after that trip, or credit card. It was definitely after. So I would have been completely stranded on a trip that I didn't even want to go on. I went on to please my parents because, as the pattern shows, I continued from childhood through my adult years to continue to please my parents, continued keeping their secrets. As you know, now that I'm a mom, I look at these situations that happened to me when I was growing up, and I look at them from the lens of a mother. I put on my mommy glasses, and I think back at these situations where I didn't feel safe, and how I would have responded in those situations. The unhealed version would, probably behave emotionally immature. But the healed version of me is disappointed that my parents couldn't love me properly. And instead of doing the right thing after high school, instead of taking me on a trip to Europe, tell your daughter that she's donor conceived because you already told your son. At that point in time, my brother was already, he had in his early 20s, had been wearing the yarmulke and had a Hebrew Bible in his bedroom. And when I questioned him about it, he told me he was 50% Jewish. At that point in time, my brother should have said, hey sis, you should probably take a DNA test because I'm pretty sure you aren't Jewish. Just look at me, guys. Do I look Jewish? And that was, again, pointed out to me during my childhood by other classmates, by people in our congregation at church, that you and your brothers simply do not look like brother and sister. Well, yes, thank you for pointing that out, because it's something we talk about constantly at home. My brother and I questioned, are we really from the same parents, from the same dad? And then when we questioned our father, questioned our mother, the answer was always a lie. So how was I supposed to know the truth? And wealth has always been more important to my parents. Keeping secrets has always been more important to my parents than the truth. Simply put. So if I hadn't found out the truth myself, they would have continued lying. Remember that. If you didn't find out the truth, your parents probably would have continued lying until their grave and continue to mistreat you. My mom would come to my house and talk so poorly about me to my own husband in my own kitchen while I was breastfeeding my children, which I had 4, doing what she couldn't do for me, be a protective, loving mother. So I was upstairs breastfeeding my child. This is one situation. And she's downstairs ranting about how to my husband. And of course, my dad, Peter, was there as well. It hurts. She was telling them that I am a burden to my mother-in-law because my sweet mother-in-law, whom I love so much, would come over and help take care of my children while I was recovering from the hospital, and would come throughout the year to spend time with her grandchildren. But of course my mom thought that it would be appropriate to pretend that my mother-in-law was upset with me. And so my mom, during that conversation, was trying to convince the room, my dad and my own husband, that my mother-in-law is mistreated by me. Couldn't be far from the truth. It couldn't be. So when I asked my mother-in-law about it, because I was deeply concerned, I asked her, I'm like, hey, my mom, said X, Y, and Z. And it was even on my home security camera. And I showed her the conversation. And she couldn't understand why my mom was saying those things, because my mother-in-law would have never complained. She always did it from a place of love. When she came to help with my children after birth, after each birth, She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of the children while I nursed the baby and nursed myself back to health. Without her help, I wouldn't have been able to survive postpartum with me, myself, and my husband, so, and then having children to take care of too at the same time. So it was heartbreaking. But then again, I have to think, like, this is so typical. It's so typical of my mom to hurt me even more, to pretend that other people don't like me and make up scenarios to get people to think that, like, I'm not a good person, that there's something wrong with me, that everyone around me doesn't like me either. It's simply not true. And it hurts. It hurts. But I talk about this because it's important I share. I don't want to feel alone anymore. I could cry about this and it's not going to do anything. Or I could speak up and talk about it out loud. Through all of this, I've learned a lot of important lessons. One of them being that money can't buy you love or loyalty. Oh, it can't. And it can't win someone who has a pure heart. I'm sorry, but the truth has set me free, and I'm not looking back. My parents don't love me. I accept that. My families would have abandoned me in Europe. And then, surprise, when we get back home from Europe, well, rewind to a few days before we got on a plane, my dad and I, to arrive back home, I got a very sad phone call on I'll never forget, on my dad's cell phone. A call came in from my cousin, Mikey, who told me that a friend of ours had passed away in a hit and run right down the street, ironically, right down the street from the church, my childhood church. He was driving a motorcycle. Oh, and ironically, that happened while my dad and I are in Germany, waiting for the passport that a family member gave to the front desk. I can't trust my entire family. That includes any offspring that they have. Time and time again, I've been shown from each family member, from those 3 individuals, that they don't care about my well-being. That they would rather see me be abandoned in Europe, maroon me in Europe. You're an adult. Bye. Because I heard that conversation and I will never forget when that family member said, well, she's an adult. She's an adult. This is her fault. Let's just leave her here. She could figure it out. No. I didn't have a cell phone. That worked. I did have a cell phone. I didn't have a credit card or money whatsoever. And the passport that was left in Switzerland wasn't even my fault. Finding out your donor conceived really makes you reevaluate the family that raised you. You have to look at them from a different point of view. Look at them from an outside point of view. You'll be surprised at what you see. I had to take off the goggles that my parents love me. I had to take those off, set them aside, and really reevaluate my worth to these people that I put on a high pedestal and call my mom and dad. I place them so high in my book of in my book of importance, and really they put everything else in front of me, but I give them so much of me and my time and my emotional, mental well-being. I give them so much of myself to please them that I just couldn't do it anymore. And being able to forgive myself is key. Don't worry about forgiving the people that won't ever take accountability for their actions. First, focus on forgiving yourself for not realizing the truth sooner, from not waking up from the fog and realizing that the truth is better than continuing to lie for criminals. That's basically what this is. Was I sold to the right people? No, I was sold to criminals. Human trafficking, basically. The fact that my sexual abuse was covered up with money to Dr. Nakbar, just from that situation alone, then finding out I'm donor conceived. Human trafficking, right there. That's a form of human trafficking. There needs to be more laws protecting donor conceived people. So, thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. You can also find me on Donor Conceived Queen on Instagram and Spotify too. Podcasts. Bye.